Where it started was shocking, but I have to focus. My favorite chapter is on a show called An American Family. It could have been its own book. It was riveting. I never heard of it because I think for Candid Microphone, Candid Camera, some of the ones early in the book, people would say, oh, well, it wasn't like a show. It was just people in these segments. But An American Family is way before anything like The Real World. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I had never heard about this in my entire life.
Okay. An American Family, look, it's my favorite chapter in the book too, and I think it's a fascinating show and a fascinating story. It was filmed in 1971. It came out in 1973. It was a series on PBS. It was filmed as, in certain ways, a cinema verite documentary. And the people who created it had a very highbrow idea of, we're creating this documentary series that's going to be about this family. It was about an affluent family in Santa Barbara, California, named the Louds. The parents were Bill and Pat Loud, and they had 5 children. And basically for 7 months they were filmed, and there were 12 episodes of the show. When it went on the air, it created an enormous response from the audience, from critics, a moral panic, a lot of disapproval. In the book, I say, it was filmed as a documentary, but when it came out, it was received as a reality TV show. And the Louds became really the first reality stars. They were famous for being famous. People judged them for having been on the show. And it broke taboos in a very new way. The parents, Pat asked Bill for a divorce on camera, and that was aired. Lance Loud, the oldest son in the family, was a tremendously charismatic, fascinating guy, who was an artist, and he was gay, and he was visibly gay in the show in a way that people understood and recognized. And that was a complete shock for 1973. But you're right. Unlike a lot of the earlier shows that were merging documentary with game shows or were prank shows, had a different structure, this was, for a lot of people, like a real life soap opera. I have to say, if anybody's watched it, because it's not easily available, it doesn't look a lot like modern reality soap operas. Like, it's a very dreamy, cinema verite, flowing, like almost avant-garde feeling show. But the subject that it covered, which was people's intimate family relationships during a very tense period in the 70s, was so startling to people that honestly, it might as well have been Dallas. It was riveting to people. And it also had an enormous influence, not only on the population, but on the people who later went on to make reality TV, one of whom was John Murray, who watched it when he was 17 and then went on to create The Real World. And The Real World really was the step after An American Family. It was another version of the documentary soap opera made of real life. And there are many different versions of this. But, I love that chapter because the Louds, who are still alive, generously spoke to me. So did Alan and Susan Raymond, who filmed the show. And those two parties are very much at odds. They used to be close. They don't speak anymore. And a lot of that, telling that story, was about taking a very delicate, complex, painful story. It's about a very important show, but one that actually caused a lot of suffering to the people who were on it and the people who made it as well. And telling stories that not everybody agrees on. I mean, this sort of runs through the book, and it's kind of the nature of journalism, of documentary, and somewhat of reality TV is, oftentimes there's a story and people remember it differently. Honestly, it's a show that people should know about because it had an enormous influence, some of it a positive influence. It's a lost part of TV history that I feel that once you know it, it kind of fills in a lot of connective gaps that explain where we got to where we are today.